My husband and sister-in-law staged a cruel joke, falsely accusing me of cheating at my pregnancy announcement. Now, my revenge isn't funny, and the truth is finally out. To give you some context, I'm 29 years old, married to my husband Jack, who is 34. We have been together for 8 years and have a 6-year-old son. We both work, but Jack has always been in charge of managing our finances. I trusted him because he seemed to have good control of our financial situation, while I was more focused on our family and my career. Everything seemed to be going well until recently when my sister-in-law, Megan, moved in with us after what she described as a messy split with her partner, Tom. Megan was visibly affected, and I wanted to support her, so I never questioned her story. I was more concerned with making sure she felt welcome and comfortable in our house, because we have all been through something like this. But what happened at my pregnancy announcement party changed everything for me. We had gathered close family and friends to share the news of our new baby. Everything was well prepared because the first time I got pregnant, it was one of the happiest days of my life. While I was in the living room, ready to make the announcement, Jack and Megan exchanged a look that I didn't quite understand at the time. I brushed it off, thinking they were excited or nervous about the news. But just as I was about to share our big news, the atmosphere changed. Jack and Megan interrupted me to say something. Without warning, Jack and Megan confronted me, asking, "How could you do this?" For a second, I laughed because I thought it was some kind of joke, but after a moment, I realized the reality. They were accusing me of cheating on Jack. Not only that, they claimed they had proof, something indisputable, something that proved I had betrayed Jack and our family. Nothing made sense. They just said random words without explaining anything concrete. I simply didn't understand anything. The guests were also in a similar state. Jack and Megan sounded so convincing, and I'm sure everyone assumed I was guilty. I stood there frozen, trying to process what was happening. I searched their faces for any sign that this was a joke or a mistake, but there was nothing. Their faces became more serious the more they talked, and I felt isolated. They had planned this, rehearsed it, and now they were executing it in front of my friends and family. How could they accuse me of something so terrible without a shred of evidence? What was the point of this? The more I questioned what they were saying, the more they insisted. After Jack finished yelling, he left the room as if angry. The guests, clearly uncomfortable and not knowing what to do, began to murmur among themselves. It must have been very uncomfortable for them because it was a personal matter as well as a lie. Little by little, one by one, they began to leave. Since there was not much to do or say at that point, it was my word against theirs. I couldn't blame the guests. I didn't know what to believe, and I didn't have the strength to explain anything. I wanted to ask Megan what this was all about, to demand some kind of explanation, but before I could even say anything, she ran out of the house with her mother without even looking at me. I felt completely abandoned. So I knew I couldn't stay there, because I was getting overwhelmed. I quickly packed up, grabbed my son, and left. I didn't know where to go, so I drove aimlessly until I ended up in a small hotel on the outskirts of town. It was far enough away from everything that I could breathe, although I felt extremely overwhelmed. I registered under a different name, hoping to keep a low profile. I didn't want anyone to find me, not even my friends or family, because in their eyes, I was a cheater and I had no way to prove otherwise. The next day, while I was sitting in the hotel room, trying to keep myself together for the sake of my son, there was a knock on the door. It was Jack and Megan. Somehow they had found me. It was surely through my dad. He was the only one who knew where I was since I had told him so that no one would worry and start a search with the police. I didn't even have time to process how they had located me before they started talking. Through their apologies, they claimed it had all been a joke. They said they never thought it would go that far, that they believed it would be funny or that it was a twisted way to test my loyalty to Jack. The more they talked, the more absurd and outrageous their excuses became. A joke? They had humiliated me in front of everyone we knew, turned my world upside down, and expected me to believe that everything had been a joke. But as they continued to beg for my forgiveness, something clicked in my mind. Their desperation was not just because of the prank itself. It was because of what I had begun to discover after the party. I had recently been going through our savings and finances to make sure we had enough to accommodate the new baby in the family, and I found a big hole in our savings. It wasn't just a small discrepancy, thousands of dollars were missing, and I didn't have any idea where they had gone. I also noticed that our credit card balance was growing, and outstanding payments were piling up. We had always paid the balance in full every month, so this was completely out of the ordinary for us. The big question was, where was that money going? I mentioned to Jack that I needed to see the credit card statements to understand what was going on, but he got very defensive. Instead of explaining to me what was happening, he turned it into an argument about whether I trusted him or not. He made it seem as if my concern was an attack on his integrity, which only made me more suspicious. I decided not to insist at that moment, but the whole situation did not leave me alone, and it made things worse. Megan came up to me later, out of the blue, telling me that I should never doubt Jack, that he was one of a kind, and that I was lucky to have him. It was strange and unsolicited, almost as if she knew about the conversation I had with Jack and wanted to reinforce his narrative. All of this bothered me and made me feel even more uneasy, so I started to take a closer look at our bank accounts and financial records. By carefully reviewing our accounts, I discovered something alarming. Jack had been transferring money to Megan. The transactions were disguised as innocent payments, but the amounts were too large and too frequent to ignore. Jack had been slowly siphoning off money from our savings and funneled it into Megan's account. The chronology of these transfers coincided with a time when Megan had supposedly moved in with us after her breakup, which now seemed more like a made-up story than the truth. At first, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Jack had always handled our finances, and I had trusted him implicitly, but now it was clear that he had been hiding important things from me. The missing money, the unpaid credit card bill, the sudden appearance of Megan in our house, everything started to fall into place, but not in the way I expected. I realized that Jack and Megan had created this whole story to distract me from their real activities. Megan was not staying with us because she was heartbroken. She was hiding from the consequences of her actions. The money Jack was sending her was not a loan or a gift. It was part of a larger scheme to cover up the embezzlement she had committed in the business she ran with Tom. When all this started to fall into place, I knew I couldn't stay quiet. Jack and Megan had tried to manipulate me with their so-called prank at the pregnancy announcement party, hoping to divert me from the truth, but instead of deterring me, it only made me more determined to find out what was really going on. Now, at the hotel, Jack and Megan were in full panic mode, desperately trying to convince me that the accusations at the party had just been a joke, a bad idea that had gotten out of hand. But I saw through their lies. Now I knew what they were really worried about, that I had discovered their plan and that I wasn't going to let them get away with it. They begged me to forgive them, to keep everything between us, but I was no longer going to play their game. Their faces turned pale as they realized I wasn't lying. I told them that I was going to expose everything in front of our families and friends. I didn't tell them this, but if necessary, I would also inform the authorities. I could tell that they were now really worried about what I was saying. Jack and Megan broke down in tears, begging me to reconsider, to think about the impact this would have on our lives. But I didn't care anymore. Just like my husband didn't care before calling me unfaithful in front of our families, this wasn't a joke, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. After a while, I got tired of hearing their empty apologies and called the hotel security, asking them to escort Jack and Megan out of the room. While Jack left, he turned to me and said he knew he had made a mistake and that he was sorry for what he had done. But then he added that if I went ahead with my plan, I would be destroying the life of our son and our future baby. I tried to stay strong, but that phrase kept resonating in my mind. Now, I wonder if it is really worth it. If I continue to expose my husband and my sister-in-law, it's not going to be nice at all, and our family will break irreparably. Our children would grow up with their parents fighting and probably a lot of toxicity. That is why I want you to guide me. Am I the bad one for wanting to expose my husband and my sister-in-law after their supposed joke, even if it means destroying everything? Update 1. I hope you are well. First of all, I want to thank you for leaving so many supportive comments. I also saw several questions, so I will try to answer them all. Many people asked exactly what the dirty business was that my husband and sister-in-law were involved in. Well, to be honest, I didn't know the whole truth either until a few days ago. To understand everything, I contacted Tom, Megan's ex-boyfriend. At first, he was a little reluctant to go into details about the incident, but after telling him what had happened to me recently, he was willing to tell me all the dirty business. What I discovered was a complex web of financial fraud and deceit that had been going on for months, right before my eyes. As I dug deeper into our finances and Megan's past, a disturbing image began to emerge. It all started with the supposed complicated separation of Megan, which led her to move in with us. There was actually no breakup, at least not in the romantic sense. Megan had been running a small business with her partner, Tom, for several months. She and Jack had been systematically embezzling company funds. At first, they siphoned off small amounts, but over time, they became bolder. When Tom finally discovered the discrepancies in the accounts, Megan panicked. Instead of taking responsibility for her actions, she turned to Jack for help. My husband, as the protective older brother, made the fatal decision to help her cover up the crime. Jack's role in this scheme was much larger than I could have imagined. He helped Megan launder the stolen money through our personal accounts. They set up a series of complex transfers, moving funds between various accounts to hide their origin. Jack, who had always handled our finances, was able to hide these transactions from me for months. The amounts involved were staggering. Over $100,000 had been embezzled from Tom, and it had all gone through our accounts at some point. Jack had been using his knowledge of financial systems to create a difficult-to-follow paper trail. But their deception went beyond hiding money. They fabricated an entire narrative about Megan's life to justify her sudden presence in our home. The story of her breakup, her emotional distress, and her need for family support was a carefully constructed lie to prevent anyone from digging too deep into the real reason she had left her old life behind. As I pieced together the timeline, I realized their scheme had begun to fall apart in the weeks leading up to my pregnancy announcement. My growing interest in our finances as we prepared for the baby had made Jack nervous. Megan was also feeling the pressure, as Tom had started talking about involving the authorities and not returning the money. Their prank at my pregnancy announcement party was a desperate attempt to create a distraction. They hoped that by causing a scene and putting me on the defensive, they could buy more time to cover their tracks. It was a cruel and calculated move, using what should have been one of the happiest moments of my life as a smokescreen for their crimes. The more I discovered, the more I realized how deep their betrayal was. They had lied to me, to our families, to Tom, and to everyone around us. They had abused my trust, used our home as a base for their illegal activities, and potentially put our future and the future of our unborn child at risk. This was not just a case of bad judgment or a momentary lapse in ethics. It was a carefully planned campaign of fraud and manipulation that had been going on for almost a year. So, I planned to tell my family and Jack's family everything. I will not keep this secret, and they deserve to face the consequences of their actions. I will also speak to Tom. He has said he was hoping Megan would return the money, but I think it's time I got the authorities involved. Update 2. Thank you all for your patience and support. I finally did what I said I would do. I gathered our friends and family to expose Jack and Megan's lies. It wasn't easy, especially considering the last time they saw me, they accused me of being unfaithful. Many of them even believed I was pregnant by another man. Convincing them to get together was an uphill battle, but I knew I had to do it. I contacted each one personally, explaining to them how I had been reviewing our finances, discovering the missing money, and how Jack reacted so defensively when I asked him about it. I described how Megan had tried to convince me that I was doubting a husband who was 1 in a million. Well, maybe she's right. He was 1 in a million, but a criminal. But I knew that my words alone would not be enough to convince everyone, especially after the accusations against me. So, I prepare myself with evidence, bank statements, credit card bills, and all the evidence I had gathered with so much effort. I had created almost a presentation, laying it out on the table in front of everyone, showing the series of transactions that revealed how Jack had been transferring money to Megan, helping her cover up her embezzlement. Then I pulled out my trump card, Tom. The last time we met to discuss everything, He offered to be by my side as a witness. Tom was respected and admired by my in-laws, and I knew his words would carry weight. My mother-in-law's face turned pale when she saw that her sons were white-collar criminals, while my father-in-law shook his head in disbelief. I finally addressed the elephant in the room: the accusations of infidelity that Jack and Megan had thrown at me during the pregnancy announcement party. I revealed what they told me later, that it had been a joke, but I made it clear that I had no physical evidence to offer them. I looked each of them in the eyes and told them they could check my laptop and phone if they needed to make sure I had nothing to hide because I had never done anything wrong. Then my own family reacted. My parents, who initially denied the accusations of infidelity, were now full of tears in their eyes because they didn't know that everything that had happened was even worse. A couple of relatives came forward with additional information about Megan. One of Megan's cousins mentioned that Megan had borrowed money from her a while back, saying that she was in a bad situation after her breakup with Tom. She never returned the money, and whenever the subject came up, Megan would start crying about how terrible things were with Tom, making everyone feel bad for her and leaving the subject aside. Another family member shared a similar story, and it was clear that Megan had been manipulating those around her for quite some time. I'm pretty sure that when Jack and Megan find out about this, they will have a very strong reaction. For now, I feel relieved to know that my family knows the truth. I hope things get better in the future. Whatever happens next, you will be the first to know. Update 3. It's been a while since my last post, and so many things have happened that I barely know where to start. First and foremost, I'm not staying at the hotel anymore. After everything that happened, my parents asked me to stay with them. They insisted it was because they didn't want to lose the opportunity to take care of my son and the baby on the way. It has been comforting to be back home, especially being pregnant, since constantly being on the move is not ideal. Being in a fixed place, surrounded by people who truly care about me, has been a relief, even if temporary. Despite the relative peace I have found here, Jack and Megan have continued to try to get in touch with me, although for very different reasons. Jack has been on an endless apology tour since the truth came out. When he found out that I had exposed everything to our families, at first he was a little angry, but quickly changed to a tone of remorse. It's like he's stuck between wanting to express how sorry he is and feeling betrayed because I told everything. He keeps telling me he wants to see our son, and I know I should probably let them see each other, but I honestly don't have the emotional energy right now. The events of the last few days have affected me physically and mentally. I have explained this to Jack, but he seems to think I am avoiding him on purpose. Maybe I am, but after everything that has happened, he can't blame me. He has tried to visit us several times, but I have asked my parents to keep him away for now. I just can't face him yet. Every time I think of the betrayal, the lies, and how easy it was for him to almost ruin my life with his accusations and deceptions, I feel sick. Megan, on the other hand, has been nothing short of a nightmare. After the revelation to the family, she has been bombarding me with text messages and voice messages full of insults and threats. I suspect that some of our relatives told her everything, especially the part where I involved Tom. She is absolutely furious about it, but what was I supposed to do? I had to protect myself and expose the truth, even if it meant bringing all their dirty laundry out into the open. Even though I've tried to protect my son from all this drama, I can't deny that it has affected him too. He was there when Jack and Megan accused me of cheating at the pregnancy announcement party, so he knows something isn't right. Even though I've done my best to keep him out of it, my heart breaks every time he asks me where his dad is and why he hasn't visited him. I've been telling him that his dad is on a business trip and that he will be back soon, but I know that this lie cannot last long. I have to sit down with him and explain clearly that his parents are going to divorce because if that is what is going to happen, there is no such thing as a large amount of apologies that will change that destiny for us. I don't know how my son will take it, but it is something that we will have to face sooner or later. The other alternative is to continue being married to a liar, a swindler, and an egomaniac, which I think could be even worse for my son and the one who is about to be born. As for Tom, he is filing his lawsuit against Megan and Jack. He has grown tired of waiting for Megan to return the money. He has asked me for help with all the information that I have been gathering. I don't know if that information will be useful for a trial, but I am willing to testify and do everything necessary to help him. Update 4. This will not be too long of an update since there is not much new to tell. However, I have been bombarded with messages asking for updates, and responding one by one has become exhausting, so I have decided to make this short post. The divorce is underway, and the prospects are good to resolve this soon. My husband, being involved in 2 embezzlement lawsuits, seems to have little room to divide his attention between 2 cases at the same time, so I have faith that he will sign the papers so that we can finish this as soon as possible. I have decided to ask for full custody. I do not believe that he is a suitable paternal figure to be close to my son. I do not want stealing money to be something that my son can learn from him. As for Tom, his lawsuits against Megan and Jack are ongoing. In addition to a civil lawsuit to recover the money, he is also collaborating with the prosecution in a criminal suit since what happened is considered a crime of theft. It is a relief that Tom was not married to Megan since that would have made things even more complicated for him, but I fully understand what he is facing. I also trusted someone close to me and was betrayed. It is a devastating experience. In a few weeks, I will probably have to testify. I am a little nervous because I have never done it before, but I feel that it is my duty. Tom has helped me a lot, and now it's my turn to support him. Oh, and before I forget, if there are no more updates for now, it's because there's nothing significant to share. Please try not to send me private messages asking for updates, as it's difficult to reply to all. Plus, some people get mad if I don't reply. I have a kid, I'm pregnant, and I also have a job to keep. I can't be online all the time. I will do an update when things have calmed down a bit and there is relevant news. Update 5. I told you that I would come back. They just needed to have a little confidence in me. If this is my last update, only time will tell, but I'm still going to try to make it so. The divorce was the first thing to be resolved since my ex-husband was willing to sign the papers as soon as possible. I did not make it easy for him because I demanded not only full custody but also compensation for the money that had been taken. For that reason, the division of assets was not equitable since a part was used to return the money that had been given to Megan. She missed the birth of my son, but I will talk about that later. The civil suit was also a hard blow for them, or rather, for their pockets. They were forced to return the money to Tom, along with the interest for the opportunity cost of the money that Tom could not use, and they also covered some losses that he incurred since he did not have part of the necessary capital to operate the business. I don't know the numbers, but I think it was fair for Tom, or at least that's what he said. As far as the criminal complaint is concerned, things have been a little more complex, since we're not just talking about money. To start with, Megan was sentenced to serve a year in prison. I don't keep count, but I don't think she has much left of her sentence. My ex-husband had to serve only 3 months in prison, and that's why he missed the birth of our son. When he got out, he was only able to see the baby for a while, a couple of times with his older brother, and always under supervision. I would have preferred that he not be able to see them at all, but those were the judge's orders. Some things have gone well, and others not so much, but that's life. We do the best with what we have. I want to clarify that there will be no more updates, so there is no need to fill my message box asking. I prefer to leave all this behind unless something extremely important related to my case happens. This will be my last post. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you know someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories.